working at that job basically led me into every position that I've had. So I really haven't had to do a normal interview because people would land somewhere and then I would know them. Like my next position, the gal that I worked with went over there. I was her reference. And so when I was ready to look, I just called her manager and said, "Hey, I'm looking." She's like, "Well, come on over." So I've been blessed in that sense that through that company, it just led me to even to Odyssey. I got kind of jealous of seeing my friends, hearing about them working in the consulting business. I just kept seeing everyone having extra money. And one of the girls I worked with, her husband did IT. And she's like, "Well, y'all kind of do the same thing."
Welcome back to another episode of the Who You Know Show podcast, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. My name is Trevor Houston, and on this show, you'll learn the strategy, grit, and mindset it takes to overcome obstacles so you can level up in your career, recover your cash flow, and live the life of purpose that God intended for you. Don't forget to look at the mic drop moments time-stamped in the show notes below. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pay it forward, subscribe, and leave an honest review so we can improve. Thanks for listening. My name is Trevor Houston, and please enjoy this episode of the Who You Know Show.
Let me introduce you to Shelly Casino. She's coming up on her 20th anniversary with Odyssey Information Services, where she is the director of recruiting. Shelly, 20 years is a long time. What would you say some of the biggest mistakes that you think job seekers are making right now?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think what's super important, and you already touched on it, is networking who you know in your group. Even if you think they may not have anything or have a connection, that's who you should reach out to first, is really letting everyone know that you're on the market. And if you have target companies, to really dig in and find who do you know at those companies that will help you, because you can send your resume to recruiters, you can apply online, but having somebody push for you internally is the key. And really a lot of times, depending on when you apply or put your resume in, if you're not that first stack of resumes, your resume is just going to sit there because there's so many in the queue. So I think really getting your people to kind of help you, that's what really got me placements in the business, is really referrals, networking, because people know who the good people are, and they're probably sitting right next to them.
Mm-hmm. Good people refer good people, don't they?
Yeah. Usually they don't want to put their name on someone that would make them look bad. So
Speaking about stack of resumes, right? Do you ever get that stack, that initial number of people that come in, you're just like, none of these are.
I do have to say it's gotten very interesting when you're posting a position on Dice and LinkedIn. Those are kind of the two places that we do a lot of postings. And the volume has just gone up like tremendously. So personally for me, I almost get like high anxiety when I'm posting certain positions because I'm afraid I can't keep up with the volume. And sometimes what happens, it's that first day of resumes that you're going through. If you find what you like, then the poor people, you know what I mean? You might have the best candidate that sent their resume later and you miss them. So my advice is, if you think you're the best candidate, be persistent and find a connection of like who you could draw the attention that you applied for that position. Now, if you're not the best candidate, I would say don't do that. And I've seen that a lot where some candidates like don't match at all. And I would say as a recruiter, I really appreciate it when I see people that are pretty good matches. But if you have like zero experience and it's like asking for a senior level dev, that's probably not the right one to send your resume to.
Yeah, I know Foster a lot of time talking about that, right? Like just making sure that you're qualified.
I mean, you don't have to be perfect, but have at least something that's going to draw their attention. Yeah. Because what happens is, well, especially with COVID and everything is remote now, right? It's temporarily remote. I'm getting everyone from out of town sending their resume in. But honestly, a lot of our positions still require them to be based here. So at some point in time, they're going to need to move here. So that has increased.
And guys, send us the resumes, folks like me and Shelley. Send us resumes. Pay attention to those required, guys. The required. Look at the company, see what the company does, and look at those required skills, what they're looking for. That's what you want to answer. I know it's tough not having a job, but if you go for the nice to haves, me and Shelley probably aren't going to call you.
Yeah, if it says required, what does that mean? Like, applying is a waste of time if it says required,
Absolutely.
It's a great point. Tell us a little bit about Odyssey.
Well, Odyssey, we actually started 20 years ago in March, and we're in the IT staffing business. We're here in Plano. We have an office in Houston as well, and we do work a lot in the Dallas and Houston market, but honestly, we can work nationwide. I do have some consultants like in California, and we do some statement of work business where we have some international business and with one of our clients that kind of got us going from the beginning of time. So we've been blessed to have the statement of work plus doing staff aug, and we do perm placement. So really we find the client and whatever it is they need, we're going to go and find and work it.
What are you looking for right now? I see you got a whole list of things.
Yeah, I do have quite a bit. I would say we have quite a few positions that are in the software development area. We have a 2-year project where we need an Android developer, senior level. We also have a React UI developer, a 2-year project. We have a client in Dallas. It is in all of our positions, I feel like are remote or have some form of remote in the requirements. .NET. Back-end development, a direct hire. And in fact, that client has done a 1 to 2 interview and boom, hire. So it's a real quick process. If we have any fresh grads, I have an entry-level position that'll be working with C# and learning Epic. So in the healthcare industry, full-time, probably around 55 to 60K.
Good.
And that came out today. So I probably need to get some people in quick on that. I have a product designer doing UI, UX, working on they're doing prototyping.
UI, UX, guys, is user interface and user experience.
Yeah, all y'all techies out there, y'all need to connect with Shelley.
And you said they need to have a portfolio.
They need to have a online
Yep.
Oh,
portfolio,
yeah.
and they definitely like the creative, like working with devices, integrating like with TV and Google and Alexis.
So I'm going to have them connect with you. And what would be the best way if they heard something that they were interested in? They just want to connect with you directly on LinkedIn?
They can do a LinkedIn, and then they can also email. Send me an email. Both. It would be good if they emailed me. Send me a LinkedIn connection too, and then we'll.
Okay.
If they start out with a LinkedIn, they can always.
What's that email address?
Shelley, SHELLEY at Odyssey, ODYSSEYIS.com.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
Odyssey IS. Don't mess it up, y'all. Couple quick questions for you. So you said when you started in your career, it was commission only.
Mm-hmm.
Starting your career early with a commission only position, would you say that would be a blessing or a curse?
Oh, it was 100% blessing, I would say. First of all, I had no debt, so I could make no money, which was very helpful. But basically, it gave me the tools to really do whatever I wanted to do next. And honestly, like when I interviewed, working at that job basically led me into every position that I've had. So I really haven't had to do a normal interview because people would land somewhere and then I would know them. Like my next position, I worked for MCare and I did physician locum tenens staffing. I did recruiting, and the gal that I worked with went over there. I was her reference. And so when I was ready to look, I just called her manager and said, "Hey, I'm looking." She's like, "Well, come on over." So, I've been blessed in that sense that through that company, it just led me to Odyssey. Believe it or not, the owner, John Hibbs, who is CEO at Odyssey, we actually worked together at that first company. I don't really share that too much because really does age me if he says how long he knows me. He was in engineering and I was in the general business group at the time. And so when I got got kind of jealous of seeing my friends, you're hearing about them working in the consulting business. One of the girls I worked with at MCare, her husband did IT. And she's like, well, y'all kind of do the same thing. I was doing account management at the time. And back then he was working MCI and he managed that account. And so I just kept seeing everyone having extra money and, making the commissions.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So, I mean, a lot of people, when it comes to commission only, there's a fear of that, right? There's that, I'm not going to have a safety net. I'm not going to have that guaranteed paycheck. But talk to the audience about the upside of a commission only. Like, what advice would you give to somebody if they were even thinking about maybe a commission only position?
Well, the thing is, you are in charge of what you make, in my opinion. So you
kill what you eat.
You're right. Right. So if you're not going to put a lot of effort in, you're not going to get much back. But I feel like if you're really motivated and you have the tools, to do what you need to do in that role, I mean, and it's a good market to be in. I mean, you don't want to be working commission in something that the reality is it's really hard to secure a deal. I don't even know if there really is straight commission roles anymore in this business. I think that kind of went away, but I just think it taught me so much. Like that environment, it was a sweatshop. I have to say it was a very tough environment. They really only did work quite a bit with fresh grads because they would only put up with it. They didn't know any better at the time. I mean, I would go in at 7:30 and we had 30-minute lunches. I mean, it was very, very rigid. And we would bring in candidates for face-to-face interviews, which thank goodness, like that's what I love now, like not just talking to people and not having to, it was very controlling, that environment, but you learned the process. That's why I would never change, is that when you're in straight commission, you're not just thinking about what you're doing now, but what you're doing now, how is that going to affect me in a month from now, 2 months from now, down the road. So I feel like I do that in my job now. I'm always kind of thinking a little bit in advance.
Are we the number one IT market? Would you say that Dallas is? I don't know. I cut my teeth in IT recruiting, guys. So Shelley is definitely one of the best IT recruiters in our market here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I know we're a strong IT market. Are we the best? Are we the biggest?
Maybe outside of Silicon Valley?
Well, that's not fair.
What I like about our market, it's very diversified.
Very diverse.
Very diversified. Yeah. If you compare it to Houston, Houston is heavy healthcare and oil and gas.
Yeah. Energy,
I keep hearing Austin is like the place to be, but I don't have a lot of accounts in Austin. Anyone want to give us some leads? We'd love to go after some Austin accounts. But I think the Dallas-Fort Worth market is attractive. Companies are still coming here.
Yeah.
And thanks to Toyota, they kind of drove our housing market up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's trying to get into Toyota. That's for sure. We see that all the time.
Yep. We work with them also.
We've got recruiters out of the network that work at Toyota, and you ought to hear those stories. Oh my God.
They have a beautiful campus.
Yeah, they do.
Somebody had asked in the comments, like, what stands out to you? Like when somebody applies, what stands out to you?
That's a good question.
I'm always looking I like it when they do send a little summary. So like when they just send their resume and that's it. If they see something that they think is like pertinent in their background, that's going to be appealing, like especially having experience recently that matches what we're looking for is to me what I'm looking for. Like if I have an Epic position posted and I see that they're Epic certified, and that's all, I'm going to be like, boom, I'm on the phone calling them immediately. Just bringing it to their attention, even if it's just a couple of sentences. Maybe if you have to tweak your resume a little bit before you send it over to make sure, because if you're like, I know I have that experience, but your resume doesn't show it, make sure it does, and have a resume that's like, this is my standard resume. And then you may have one if you're on the edge of skill sets, like you want to be more manager versus, I want to be more development. You have to have a separate resume. So you have to remember who your audience is.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.